of the vote. Our Carolina News team has been covering the 2016 race to the White House since the Iowa caucuses.
Let's send it over to Malik Rankin, who has all our team coverage on the demographics that make up this election season.
Thanks, guys. In this demographic segment of the show, we'll be looking at race, gender, age, and religion and the effect they've had on the candidate's path to the presidency. Our team coverage begins with race. In the South Carolina primary, the Democratic Party received the majority of its votes from minorities, 61% of that being the black vote. In the Republican Party, only 4% of the vote was made by minorities. The Republican frontrunner's poll numbers seem to be unaffected by his racial rhetoric.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Sheikh Sabaga is a political science professor at Midlands Tech. He says Trump reaches his supporters by playing on their fears.
It's not so much how conservative you are, but how well are you reaching out to people's fears about their economy and the direction that the country is going. Some of the rhetoric is very unfortunate, and I'm sure not the direction that the country probably would want to go in.
The direction of the country is reduced to political slogans. Trump says to make America great again, and Clinton wants to make America whole again.
Nothing divides America like war and peace, black and white, rich and poor, and it's unfortunate that one of the candidates in a major party is appealing to race in a way that maybe divides Americans.
Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton campaigned hard for the black vote in South Carolina, setting a pattern for other southern states on Super Tuesday.
To us. Nobody listened to us. Nobody said Black Lives Matter until this brave and powerful woman stood up for us.
As minority voters work to Clinton's advantage, the absence of them doesn't seem to slow Trump's momentum.
As the primaries move out west, it's going to be very interesting to see the degree to which Latino voters turn towards Hillary Clinton and to what degree do they look to Senator Cruz or Senator Rubio for both the Republican and Democratic parties.
And if Trump is nominated, minority voters will have to decide how to assess his very controversial statements before the general election. When I spoke with Professor Sheikh Sabaga, he said the general election can really boil down to that minority vote. And continuing in our team coverage of demographics and politics, similar to race, gender influences the polls. Dating back to 1980, the percentage of female adults voting has exceeded male adults voting. The largest gap between voter turnout with males and females can be seen in most recent years. Although women are being represented in the polls, they're still subject to gender biases. Our Alexa Angeles tells us why that is.
I will work as hard as I can every single day. I will get up and go to work for you and fight for you.
Hillary Clinton's fight to the White House is possible because of the 19th Amendment, ratified in 1920, that allows women to vote and even run for president.
A change in politics has occurred over time, but gender stereotypes for female leaders, such as Clinton, still persist and continue to affect voter behavior.
When you don't have a lot of information about policy, you actually need to have a female candidate that is so obviously more qualified than the male candidate that she can overcome that hurdle. And that's not easy to do.
Professor Moe's findings can pick up on brain biases that show people have difficulty picturing females in a leadership position, even when both candidates, male and female, are equally qualified. Political strategist Amanda Loveday says the adjustment from a male to a female is difficult for voters.
If you go back to 2008, most people would have told you we would have never elected the first African-American president. And everyone thought that we were ready for a woman. And I think that a gender jump from male to female rather than a race jump, I think is much harder for society.
But why is that? A study by Pew Research Center reports that women in public office are better at working out compromises, keeping government honest, and overwhelmingly better at dealing with social issues. However, the majority of Americans believe men are more suited to deal with crime, public safety, national security, and defense. But Professor Moe says that people are malleable.
They can change, people can learn, but that's not going to happen if people don't actually run, right? If women don't put themselves out there, then there is not going to be an example of what a woman leader can look like.
And Clinton continues to be that example. The Secretary of State clinched the women's vote in South Carolina Democratic primary with 79% compared to Bernie Sanders' 21%.
We have to make strong the broken places.
Alexa Angeles, Carolina News.
In 2012, females made up 53% of the overall voters in the U.S., making it even more important for all presidential candidates to campaign for the female vote. And continuing with our team coverage, we move into the age demographic. This year, the millennial voters are expected to have a significant impact in the polls. In the South Carolina Democratic primary, Bernie Sanders was the frontrunner among young voters. On the Republican side, Ted Cruz was in the lead, claiming 28% of the young vote. Trump and Rubio were not far behind. The strategies and tactics used over the years has evolved, and our Deonica Thomas takes a closer look at how effective those methods impact the young voters.
With the young voter expected to make up the same proportion as the baby boomers for the first time in this upcoming presidential race, candidates have taken different routes in order to grab the young voters' needed attention. From speaking out against college tuition, campaign ads,
I'm voting for the first time,
and social media. Student voters have recognized these strategies used by the candidates to sway their vote.
I think that trying to make yourself seem like more of a pop culture icon rather than a legitimate candidate does help in some ways. However, I still think that it's a very blatantly bogus platform.
They'll release videos that are kind of like BuzzFeed style, so there'll be like listicles or like really cool designs and fun colors and stuff going on in their videos that catches the attention of younger voters. And once it catches their attention, then they're going to listen to the policies that the candidates stand for and how that they can represent America. And I think that that's a really good tactic.
Unfortunately, young people want to see the flashy like videos, Twitter or whatnot. And it is a way to get some of the issues across, but more serious issues they can't be put across in like funny videos and whatnot, because then people will think they're making jokes out of it. So it is a good idea if you want to attract young people, but at the same time, young people need to pay attention to the more serious issues too, I think.
One student suggested that the Democrats have been doing a bit more, but Hillary Clinton seems to try too hard to get the young African American vote, and Bernie Sanders' promise of the Free Education Act is skeptical because there is no such thing as free. Regardless of who gets the most attention from the young voter, the actual vote is the main goal.
Young people have become more involved with politics as it merges with their lifestyle, incorporating trendy and fresh ideas, and it will continue to play a key role in this presidential race. Continuing on in our team coverage of political demographics, we take a look at the evangelical vote. A candidate's religious beliefs have influenced the American political system for decades. The majority of voters take into consideration the candidate's religion when heading to the polls. Taylor Hollander looks into how religion is affecting the 2016 path to the presidency.
Religion has had an influence on American politics going back to President John F. Kennedy and his Catholic faith, and it continues to be a topic of debate in presidential elections today.
I'm a Christian, and my faith is integral to who I am.
Dr. Kirk Randazzo, a political science professor at the University of South Carolina, said religious beliefs have influenced voters for years.
So in the past, I think religion has played a key role in the elections, especially among evangelical Christians. The rise of the Christian Coalition in the 1980s, and basically the connection of their support to conservative candidates, primarily in the Republican Party.
In a January 2016 study, the Pew Research Center found that 51% of adults said they're less likely to vote for a presidential candidate that does not believe in God. Donald Trump, the Republican frontrunner, is not viewed as religious by most Americans, and after insulting nearly every group in America, he continues to win the majority of the evangelical vote.
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
Trump has won 10 primary states. He won the evangelical vote in 9 of those 10 states and tied with Ted Cruz for the evangelical vote in the 10th.
I think what Donald Trump is tapping into is a level of anger and resentment among evangelicals who probably feel like their concerns haven't been taken seriously by members of the Republican Party.
The Pew Research Center found that 1/2 of Americans believe that religious conservatives have too much control over the GOP. Dr. Randazzo said this could explain why the evangelical votes are shifting to the candidates seen as the least religious. With 5 months until the Republican National Convention, evangelicals could continue to propel Trump to the Republican nomination. Taylor Hollander, Carolina News.
While the evangelical vote can be overlooked, it could be a determining factor when it comes to the path to the presidency. Just as religion plays a part in getting votes, throughout our team coverage, we've seen how race, gender, and age also affect the polls and how a candidate operates their campaign. That wraps up our demographics coverage as we took it from the South Carolina primaries to what's to come in the general election. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Malik.